Next, we are going to hear about the work that has occurred since the last Judicial Summit in 2016. Our next session, titled Level Set, How Are We Doing? With that, I'd like to welcome Justice Luis Lavin, Judge Elizabeth Macias, and Judge Erika Yu.
Thank you. I'm Luis Lavin. I'm a justice on the Second Appellate District. I've been on that Court of Appeals since 2015 when I was appointed by Governor Brown. I was born in Cuba. Spanish is my first language. I'm also the first openly gay justice on the Second Appellate District. I'm not sure if we are going to hear a little bit of background now from Judge Yu and Judge Macias, or we'll wait a couple of minutes for that.
I can jump in if you'd like. I'm Erika Yu. I'm a Santa Clara County Superior Court judge. I was appointed in October of 2001, soon after September 11th, by Governor Gray Davis. I'm the first Asian American female to sit on my court. I am a current member of the California Access to Justice Commission, and I co-chair the Racial Justice and Intersectionality Committee. And I'm so glad to be here and really grateful to all of you who are here, especially the staff like Lauren and Catherine Ongiri, and then Nicole, who's our MC, to get us here and get us ready. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I want to echo the comments made by Judge Yu. My name is Elizabeth Guerrero Macias. I'm an Orange County Superior Court judge. Very happy to be with all of you today. Equally grateful to the staff as well as Judicial Council, the California Judges Association, California Lawyers Association, and all of the affinity judicial groups that have collaborated in terms of participating with the subject matter for the summit. I'm currently serving on providing access and fairness. I'm the president of the California Latino Judges Association. I'm the third Latina to sit on the Orange County Superior Court bench and first generation Mexican American. So I'm very happy to be joining you today.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned I'm co-chair of the Judicial Council's Advisory Committee on providing access and fairness, and I am just delighted to be here with you today. And I want to be able to share with you what's taken place as it relates to judicial diversity since our last summit in 2016. We're also going to be hearing about the current state of judicial diversity and why a diverse judiciary serves the public interest and improves public trust and confidence. And again, I'm just delighted to be able to be here today with Judge Elizabeth Macias from Orange County and Judge Erika Yu from Santa Clara County. The Judicial Diversity Summit, as you probably know, has been held every 5 years since 2006. And the purpose of the summit has been to assess the efforts to increase judicial diversity in California, also to make recommendations for future activities and initiatives to diversify the judiciary. I also want to echo the comments of my colleagues and say that we've had some great pre-sessions leading up to the summit. And today we've also heard some incredibly inspiring opening remarks from our Chief Justice, as well as the President of CLA and the President of CJA. Now, I just want to take a little bit of time to report out our efforts on the issue of judicial diversity since the 2016 summit. Let me give you some highlights. We have updated our judicial diversity slides, comparing diversity on the courts with the state's ethnic, racial, and gender demographics. And in a few moments, Judge Macias will be walking us through those statistics. Also consistent with the agreement with the Judicial Council, with the agreement that the Judicial Council would take the lead on judicial diversity issues with assistance from the Council on Access and Fairness in implementing judicial diversity efforts. Members of the Judicial Council's Committee on Providing Access and Fairness and members of the Council on Access and Fairness worked together in 2019 to redesign the 2011 publication Pathways to Achieving Judicial Diversity in the California Courts, also known as the Judicial Diversity Toolkit. This comprehensive toolkit contains a compilation of model mentorship programs, seminars, and outreach resources designed to increase the diversity of applicants for judicial appointment in California. The redesign resulted in a digital-first version of the toolkit as an online resource with a goal of making its content and resources more user-friendly for judicial officers and courts to adopt in outreach efforts to try to diversify applicants to the bench. The new toolkit went live in September 2019 as the new Judicial Diversity Toolkit website, and that is at courts.ca.gov /partners/judicial-diversity-toolkit.htm entitled Pathways to Judicial Diversity. And you will have a link and a slide which will give you that site. In addition, beginning in October 2019 and in partnership with the Governor's Office, the State Bar, the Jenny Commission, the California Lawyers Association, the California Change Lawyers, and the California Judges Association, the Judicial Council has convened around 22 presentations on the judicial appointments process and the Pathways to Judicial Diversity website at various events and conferences. The Judicial Council also continues to train the Jenny commissioners on the status of judicial diversity. And on the judicial appointments front, in January 2019, Governor Brown submitted his final annual demographic report as he left office, which revealed that he had appointed the most diverse judiciary in California's history. From January 2011, when his term began, through early January 2019, when his term ended, Governor Brown made 644 appointments, with almost 44% of them being women, almost 40% of them being ethnic minorities, and notable first in the LGBTQ category. Since the last summit in 2016, we have had historic appointments by Governor Brown and Governor Newsom, and I will focus on Governor Brown's appointment since the 2016 summit until he left office in 2019. Governor Brown was known for his notable first, and I just want to highlight some of those from his time in office for the 2016 through the 2019 time period. And in that time period, by the way, Governor Brown appointed 333 judges. Among Governor Brown's judicial appointees have included the first Muslim justice and the first South Asian American justice in the history of the California Courts of Appeal, and the first Muslim judge ever appointed to the Kern County Superior Court, the first South Asian American judge ever appointed to the San Francisco County and Alameda County Superior Courts, the first Sikh judge ever appointed to the Sacramento County Superior Court, the first Iranian American judge ever appointed to the Santa Clara County Superior Court, the first African American man appointed to the 4th District Court of Appeal, the first African American judge ever appointed to the Napa County Superior Court and the Placer County Superior Court, the first African American woman judge ever appointed to San Mateo Superior Court and Kern County Superior Court, the first male Latino justice ever appointed to the 1st District Court of Appeal, the first male Latino judge ever appointed to Butte County Superior Court, the first Filipino American judge ever appointed to the Contra Costa Superior Court, the Riverside County Superior Court, and the San Bernardino Superior Court, the first Asian Pacific Islander woman justice ever appointed to the 1st District Court of Appeal, the first Vietnamese American judge ever appointed to the San Diego Superior Court, the first Korean American judge ever appointed to the Alameda Superior Court and San Francisco Superior Court, as well as the first Korean American justice in the history of the California Courts of Appeal. In addition, Governor Brown appointed the first woman judge ever appointed to the Glenn County Superior Court and the Sierra County Superior Court. And finally, Governor Brown made the first, appointed the first openly gay justice in the history of the 4th District Court of Appeal and the first openly gay judge ever appointed to the Imperial County Superior Court. Now I want to turn it over to Judge Yu to talk about Governor Newsom's appointments and community outreach efforts.
Thank you so much, Justice Lavin. I think that the term of 2020 and 2021 is remember to unmute. It's just so exciting to be here. I was present at the first Judicial Diversity Summit in 2006, which happened in San Jose. And it's just so gratifying to see how far we've come since then. Regarding Governor Newsom's efforts and appointments since our last Diversity Summit in 2016, I want to share with you that since taking office in 2019, Governor Newsom has appointed 143 judges so far. Of those appointments, 48% are women, 60% are people of color, and 6.3% identify as LGBTQ. Governor Newsom noted, along with the release of demographic data for 2020, that he is deeply committed to building an inclusive administration that reflects all aspects of our state's diversity, and that the people of California are better served by a range of voices, perspectives, and backgrounds in our judiciary and throughout state government. Governor Newsom's notable firsts include the first openly gay California Supreme Court justice and only the third African-American man ever to serve on that court, the first Asian American woman justice in the history of the 4th District Court of Appeal, and the first Asian American to serve in Division 1 of the courts, the first African-American woman justice in the history of the 1st District Court of Appeal, the first Latina judge ever appointed to Kern County Superior Court, the first Asian American judge ever appointed to the Butte County Superior Court, and the first Asian American female ever appointed to the 6th District Court of Appeal. The appointments since the 2016 summit illustrate the rich diversity of our bench, but also the work that remains ahead. In addition, Governor Newsom reversed the tradition of keeping secret the identities of his Judicial Selection Advisory Committee members. That even was called the secret committee in the past. The names are now public information and can be accessed on the the governor's website. On July 1st of this year, Governor Newsom launched the California Judicial Mentor Program. This is an exciting, great statewide effort, and it's a shared undertaking between the executive and the judicial branches to advance the mutual goal of an inclusive judiciary that reflects our state's diversity. You're going to hear more about this program on day 2 of the summit. So now I'm going to transition to our Chief Justice's Civic Learning Initiative, which we heard a little bit about already. The Power of Democracy Steering Committee, which guides and supports the Chief's education initiatives to further all Californians' understanding of their judicial branch, has been really busy at work reaching students throughout the state. The Civic Learning Summit 2.0 was held in 2017. Justices, judges, educators, and students from around the state gathered at a summit convened by the chief, who spoke about the progress made while advocating for civic education in California and to discuss next steps. The next year, in 2018, the Power of Democracy launched its Judges in the Courtroom program as a pilot program. This pilot program connected judges with public school teachers to engage in lessons on the US Constitution, the rule of law, voting rights, and historical milestones in the making of our democracy. Excitedly, in 2019, that program expanded statewide. And then the next year in 2020, when the pandemic hit, they took the program virtual. During the 2020-2021 academic year, a total of 244 visits were completed virtually. One of the benefits of this was the ability to match diverse judges with diverse classrooms. The judicial branch currently posts on Twitter and the Power of Democracy Facebook group to promote the happenings and activities of the branch. And this concludes my report on the efforts of judicial diversity since the 2016 summit. So next, we're going to turn to Judge Macias, who's going to give us an overview of the judicial demographics in California. Judge Macias.
Thank you. And I will say that I'm fortunate, unlike Judge Yu and Justice Lavin, we get to focus on slides. So if we can have the first slide, thank you. The Judicial Council's long-range strategic plan for the judicial branch includes as goal number 1, access, fairness, and diversity. Among the issues addressed in the goal statement, the council affirms that in order to understand and be responsive to the needs of court users from diverse backgrounds, the makeup of California's judicial branch will reflect and mirror the diversity of the state's residents. The best practices for Goal 1 also stresses the importance of collaboration with other branches of government and our justice partners, such as the State Bar and the Jenny Commission, to achieve greater diversity in the branch. Next slide, please. To begin with, in this slide, you can see the overview of SB 56 statistics for the judicial demographics in 5 major racial or ethnic categories from 2006 to 2020 as compared to the state's population based on US Census numbers in 2000 and 2010. Although you can see the state bench does not yet reflect the population it serves, it has grown considerably more diverse in recent years. Of the 644 judges Governor Brown appointed from 2011 to 2019, nearly 40% identified as non-white or people of color, 44% identified as women, and 6% identified as LGBT. Since taking office in 2019, of Governor Newsom's first 78 judicial appointments, half of the governor's judicial appointees have been women, and 56% identified themselves as Asian, Black, or African American, Hispanic, or Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander. Statewide, and as you'll also see when we look at specific counties, the Latinx population tends to have the largest disparity between general population and representation on the bench. Next slide, please. Here you see the number of sitting judges as of the end of 2020, aggregated for the state with 1,703 judges self-reporting. The Judicial Council received approximately a response rate of 85% from sitting judges in trial courts. Next slide, please. In these next slides, which show a county by county breakdown by race, ethnicity based on population and sitting judges, I want you to focus on the non-gray colored segments of each column. The colors represent either the Hispanic, Latinx, African American, Black, API, and American Indian, Native, racial or ethnic group demographics for each county. The gray represents the white population. The slide shows the counties in alphabetical order from Alameda through Nevada. Next slide, please. As I transition to this slide, which shows the demographics of sitting judges in 2018 within the same categories, the considerable drop in diversity from the previous slide is fairly stark. If we toggle back and forth, you might also be able to compare and contrast better. Next slide, please. Same thing with the counties, the remaining counties from the state. These are counties from Orange to Yuba for general population demographics. 29 California counties are shown. Next slide, please. And now for sitting judges based on the same demographics those 29 California counties that were previously shown in slide 7. Next slide, please. This chart compares SB 56 statistics for gender from 2006 to 2020 to US Census numbers for California from 2000 and 2010, similar to our first slide based on racial and ethnic categories. You can see that although women make up a little more than half of our state's population, their representation on the bench continues to be substantially lower than their male counterparts, 37% to approximately 63%. Next slide, please. Thank you. This slide shows the breakdown from men and women on the bench as of December 31st of 2020 statewide. Next slide, please. The next slide shows gender demographics of sitting judges based on counties, with only 14 of 58 counties having achieved gender parity, or about 24%. This chart shows the counties of Alameda through Nevada in alphabetical order. Note that the counties with no dark blue columns are counties with no sitting women judges as of December 31st of 2020. Next slide, please. And here we have the demographics for Orange through Yuba counties. Next slide, please. This chart compares SB 56 statistics for judges who self-reported as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender from 2013 to 2020. Next slide, please. This chart compares SB 56 statistics for gender from 2016 to 2020 for judges who self-reported as veterans or persons with a disability. Next slide. This chart shows the breakdown for men and women on the bench as of December 31st of 2020. I apologize. It looks like what I'm looking at is the veterans with disabilities, which is the 2016 statistics. Slide 16, which is the breakdown for men and women on the bench. It looks like we've passed that slide. All right, what we have here is slide 16, and this is the last slide. We just wanted to share with you the Judicial Council's project, which is done in collaboration with the State Bar, called Pathways to Judicial Diversity. It's an online toolkit and website for judicial officers to use in their outreach to encourage and inspire interest in legal or judicial careers throughout through the pipeline from K through law school education, as well as to educate attorneys from diverse communities about the judicial appointment process. We're not going to demo the toolkit today, but you can check for the link on our chat feature. And if that's not made available now, hopefully we can make it available during this presentation. Thank you.
So I believe that you're turning it over to me now, Judge Macias.
Yes, thank you, Judge Yu.
Thank you so much, Judge Macias. And I wanted to let everyone know that the chat is now available. I'm sorry we had a little bit of technical difficulties. So chat it up. You know, we want this to be a community. We want people to feel engaged, and we want your ideas. So please use that chat, everyone. So we want to talk about many different things, including what's challenging for judges. But first, let's kind of regroup and really remind ourselves, how is a diverse judiciary serving public interest and improving public trust and confidence? So I believe that most of this audience, if not all, are very familiar with the public trust and confidence surveys. And we know from research on the macro level, as well as our own interaction with other people on the micro level, that when people feel seen and heard and understood, they have more trust in a system or person or decision. Heightened trust and participation in that decision-making has been shown to correlate to an increased compliance with the court's orders. And for those of us, many of us who are here who come from diverse communities, We know that people in that community invest in our success and feel a genuine sense of pride when they see their communities represented on the bench. Many of us have really heartwarming stories of people sharing with us what our appointments or elections have meant to them. And it gives people a real sense of inclusion and investment in the judicial system to see themselves represented. A diverse judiciary actually legitimizes the bench for people who come from communities where they have not felt empowered or included. Next month, you've heard I'll be 20 years on the bench, which I can't believe it's gone so fast. And I've come to see that judges are not only, fair and just arbiters of disputes, but I'm seeing us as motivators. For example, we motivate people to be better parents in dependency and family actions. We motivate companies and people to treat employees or employers better. We motivate probationers to do better. We motivate lawyers to do the best job that they can. We motivate jurors to stay engaged and participate, and more. So as a whole, judges can be the best motivators when people again feel seen, heard, and understood. And our own diverse life experiences gives us that extra layer of understanding about what cultural influences are at play and what interpersonal dynamics might be present, so that we can, be the best judges and the best motivators that our state deserves. And then finally, a diverse bench uplifts the bench itself. Through my diverse colleagues in Santa Clara, many of whom have been firsts in their appointments, and my colleagues throughout the state, I've come to learn so much, and I feel like it's made me a better person and a better judge. One example is what Judge Delaney talked about, the California Judges Association Diversity and Inclusion Series, which was led by Judge Macias and others. And I'm going to turn to Judge Macias now and say to her, bench officers are actually encouraged to be involved in their communities. Their involvement uplifts public trust and confidence, and they can readily do so within the bounds of the canons of judicial ethics. So Judge Macias, why should judges be out in the community?
Thank you, Judge Yu. I was actually looking at California Rule of Court Standards of Judicial Administration, Standard 10.5, which reads as follows, quote, take an active part in the life of the community where the participation of the judiciary will serve to increase public understanding and promote public confidence in the integrity of the court system. I couldn't have said it better. And I think that in addition to that, it's important because the community, parents, teachers, students, they need to see us. We help them understand that a diverse judiciary is important to serving the community. And in doing that, we create and maintain a robust pipeline for a more diverse judiciary in the future. I know that having grown up, I never saw a judge in my community. And I know that when I go out in the community, the difference that it makes at the elementary school level, middle school, high school, college, law school, and even within our own legal community. So being out there in the community is extremely important. And with that, I'd like to turn to Justice Lavin. Being in the community, I've been asked, why are we focusing on diversity? Don't we want the most qualified candidates? What's your response to this question, Justice Lavin?
Well, I think quality and diversity are not mutually exclusive at all. And I can say the candidates that have been appointed since the last summit on 2016, if you just look at their experience and their educational background, they are incredibly qualified. They also happen to be incredibly diverse. So again, these are not things that are mutually exclusive. And I think also, and I certainly think the governors who've changed the application process for judicial appointments really recognize that you have to look at the person holistically. You have to look at their not just their education and their jobs, but their involvement in the community, their empathy, their compassion. All of these qualities make a candidate a better judge. People will respect them more, and also the judge will really have a better sense of the community that they're judging. And I think you have to look at people sort of holistically. So it's not just how many cases you tried or how well you really know the evidence code. There's so many different layers and aspects of judging. And I think why a diverse judiciary is so important. But again, these things are not mutually exclusive. So with that, I do want to turn to Judge Macias and ask about the challenges to increasing diversity on the bench and challenges that judges from historically disadvantaged communities may have.
Thank you, Justice Lavin. You know, I thought about this in the context of the conversation series for the California Judges Association, and having had the opportunity to speak to some of the firsts from back when, and some of the firsts from just recently. And one of the, I think, themes that we saw throughout their conversation was a level of isolation. And I think it's because, you know, as the chief said it, and it just resonated, which is, you know, you think about following in the footsteps of someone else, but if there isn't someone's footsteps to follow on that bench, then you have to be the trailblazer, and creating, you know, that path can have its challenges, and having your colleagues understand, you know, how different you might see things, and engaging you may also have challenges. So the conversation series, if anything, I think has encouraged colleagues to say, I want to talk to you, I want to learn from you, I want to have a conversation with you, I want to engage with you. And I think, you know, that's opened up a stream of discussion, which is really important. And so, you know, I think that that's been helpful to those that have been on the bench for a really long time and were the first back when, to those who are on the bench now and are seeing that opportunity to be able to create a better relationship with their colleagues, open lines of communication. But I think one of the other areas that has been a concern, especially in some of our smaller counties, has been the issue of retention, the issue of recall efforts, and the concern that once they are appointed, they might be facing a challenge. And so with that, I want to turn it to Judge Yu, because I know that CAPAJA has been, you know, working on some really great projects in terms of helping in this effort.
Yes, and CAPAJA is the California Asian American Pacific Judges Association. And so, unfortunately, what we found is that in different parts of the state, Northern and Southern California, judges with Asian surnames have been challenged for their seats. In one situation, a judge who's now retired, but a wonderful judge who had been a high-ranking official in Vietnam and then came to the United States, started all over again, as many immigrants do, and as many refugees do. He eventually became appointed to the court, and he was challenged. And his friends, people who supported him, talked to the challenger and asked that person, an attorney, why that lawyer had selected this judge to challenge when there were other open seats. And that person was very frank and said that he thought that it would be easier to win an election against a judge with a name that did not appear to be a Western name. And since that time, several other Asian American and Latinx judges have been challenged, and other judges, because of their ethnicity or their perceived vulnerable minority background. And that is an issue on multiple levels. It's a recruitment issue because, you know, you're a lawyer, you give up your practice, and then you get this wonderful opportunity to serve the state and this wonderful job. And then you might be challenged and taken out, and then you have to build back your practice. I mean, what does that going to do to encourage people to apply in counties or communities where there isn't a lot of support. I mean, there's some counties that are so small where there's 2 judges who sit, there's not even a bar association, much less a minority bar association. The other issue is that it's not really, you're not challenging a judge for their the content of their work, and so it's not really fair. And so that's another piece that is a difficulty. So what CAPAJA did is mirror what California Judges Association did. So California Judges Association, backing up, set up a pact to help judges who are challenged, and CAPAJA we are a 501c3, but it added a new entity that would be allowed to be a pact. And the PAC will support judges who are challenged. It doesn't have to be an Asian American justice or jurist. It can be any judge who is challenged for a purpose that doesn't seem to be based on their work, but really the community they represent, their surname or their ethnicity. Another issue that I wanted to raise in answering Justice Lavin's question about what challenges exist for people who are first or from minority backgrounds is this really interesting dichotomy that I'm still sort of sometimes experiencing and trying to figure out how to navigate. One is you want to, especially when 20 years ago, you're the first, you want to fit in. You don't want to be the person that's upsetting the apple cart all the time. And yet you feel a sense of responsibility when you see something that just isn't really something that should be happening. On the other hand, we're not a monolith. So then sometimes people say, oh, you're our Asian person, so let me ask you, what do all Asian people think? Well, I mean, I can't speak for all Asian people because there's, Chinese Americans, Filipino Americans. I mean, there's just so many different groups and we're not a monolith. So yes, I feel a sense of responsibility. I want to speak out, but I'm not sure I want to be identified by other people as the person who has that sole responsibility. So it's an interesting dichotomy that you experience when you're there as a first. And I see, Judge Macias nodding, and I wanted to see if she wanted to say anything further about that.
I just, I want to say thank you, because I think you're so right. And I think it's so incredibly important that people understand that, when you are, for example, Latinx, there are so many countries that fall under the Latinx umbrella. And even, if you are, for example, Mexican American, there are generational issues. I'm first generation, which is very different to someone who may be, 3rd generation or 5th generation, or their experience in terms of where they grew up. So there are subcultures within a culture. And I think it's so incredibly important that people understand that, when they look to us. And I think that's why it's so important, as I was talking about the conversation series, that people understand that most of us are open to having that conversation. Most of us are open to talking something through. We both may learn something in the process, which is, maybe you didn't get your answer, and maybe I can't answer that question, but maybe we can look to someone else that might be able to help us with that, right? That's why these affinity groups have been so wonderful, because we do have such a large umbrella of people that fall within these organizations throughout California. We have amazing judicial officers that belong to all of these associations, and we all, try to stay in contact with one another, and we all try to communicate with one another. So if maybe I can't answer the question, maybe someone else can.
That's such a good point. And what's so interesting is, while we may think our experience as a minority person is unique, it actually, our experience and sometimes our feelings cross culture, multicultural, multiracial, because a lot of us have had similar experiences, and it feels like we don't know what to do, but talking to each other really, really helps. So I'm wondering if we want to address any other questions before I turn it over to Michael Roosevelt. And I think we do have a little bit more time, and there were some additional questions that we were given. So should we take one more question, or do you think that we should turn it over? Justice Lavin, Judge Macias, what do you think?
I think if there's some questions anybody wants to respond to, that would be great.
I agree.
Okay, so one of the questions that was posed to us is, why is the pipeline so important for judicial diversity? Would either of you like to address that?
If I may, because I talk about outreach so much, I think the pipeline is important because if we're not reaching out to our, and in particular, I'm talking about, my previous focus, which was K through 12. I think that if you don't reach kids, particularly in areas where, there's underrepresentation on the bench, if you don't reach kids early on and you don't teach them to dream, you don't teach them that an education is important because they're capable of greatness, then they won't invest in their education. They have to show up to school. They have to invest in their studies. They have to, do their homework. They have to have a solid foundation so that when we're also reaching out to them in middle school and in high school and encouraging them to go to law school, that they have the skill set necessary to succeed. That's why it's so incredibly important that we lay a solid foundation early on so that they're able to achieve graduation, college, get into law school, and then pass the bar so that they can become great lawyers, reach that 10-year mark and apply to the bench.
Right. I just want to echo those comments and also say there's so many people like myself who I was an immigrant. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know any judges. Even practicing as an attorney, the judiciary seems so far removed. So I think it's so important for all of us to get out in the community and really encourage people, demystify the job, but also impart how important it is, what a wonderful job it is. And yes, there are challenges, but it is an incredible job. It's one of the best jobs you could ever have. Certainly in the legal profession, I think being a judge or a justice is just incredible responsibility to everyone. It's such a great thing. So we really have to get out there and encourage people who may not otherwise know judges to think about becoming a judge and getting the right training and experience and then applying.
I used to think I'm sorry, Judge Macias, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, what did you think about that question, Judge Yu?
Thank you, Judge Macias. I used to think being a lawyer was the best job in the world, especially being a litigator, because you learn so much and then you learn enough to deconstruct it, explain it to a judge and jury, you go into the next thing, you learn next thing. But I was wrong. Being a judge is better. So sorry for the lawyers out there. I think one of the most important responsibilities we have as judges who represent diverse backgrounds is to actually be involved in the pipeline. That work started because when I was on the State Bar Board of Governors, as it was called at that time, there was a survey that looked at the State Bar data from 2000 to 2020. And it was actually projected that the diversity of the profession and the bench would be going down as the diversity of the population would be going up. And so in 2001 is when the statewide diversity pipeline work was started. And it is just so important. And I feel like it's one of our most important responsibilities. And now fast forward 20 years later, what I think is so interesting is so many people I meet tell me they want to be a judge, from my lawyers in the courtroom to my resource managers to case managers. And this is a true story. I actually got a cold call that I answered, and I don't know how they got directly to me, but it was a child, maybe, like junior high. And I could hear her mother in the background. And from her accent, I could tell the mother was an Asian American. And the child said, my mom wants me to be a judge. And so she asked me to call a judge to find out how to do that. And I was like, okay. So I explained, and I heard the mother asking questions in the background. I was like, yes, all the pipeline work is paying off, So I just wanted to share that story and thank Judge Macias and Justice Lavin and turn it over to Michael Roosevelt. But before I do that, I want to just say how uplifting this work has been and to thank really the tens and hundreds of people who have been doing this work for the time that we've been doing it since 2006 and before. And also to sort of let us know that there's still work to be done. And it's really exciting to contemplate how far we'll go. Maybe we won't have to talk about firsts anymore, for example. Maybe all of us will get cold calls from kids who want to find out how to be a judge. So I invite you as the audience to please share your feedback and your thoughts and any emerging issues or ideas of how we can continue the work. Please email the jds@jud.ca.gov email, which I know Kathy, since she's so awesome, has already probably put in the chat. And so Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you everyone for listening to the three of us.